it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to start off today by using my gel plate. This is the Dilutions one and this is the 9 by 11 inch one. Now you can see that I'm just going to end up using the bottom portion of the plate. However, I invested in a big one so that I can also do large techniques if I want to, but it's just as easy to use small ones as well, smaller parts of it. I'm starting off by just using a light blue and a white paint. These are acrylic paints that I mainly stick to. I definitely love using oxide inks and pigment inks and things on gel plates as well. They work just as well. I have a little brayer that I am going to brayer the colour in, and then I just have some Nina Solar white cardstock. This is 80-pound cardstock, and I'm going to create the background of my scene today. So I know that it's really hard to see on camera, but it has created this sort of blue and white sort of cloudy day effect, I guess, cloudy sky. And then I just use a piece of normal printer paper for the cleanup afterwards. So I don't wipe it down with, wet cloths or everything in between every single layer. I have some kind of lime green and then kind of a dark teal color here. Some of these are Ranger colors, some of these are, they're just anything. Any acrylic paints that I have I use, and I just put them all together. This is where I'm going to create some hills and things for the background, and I actually wasn't going to do everything with my gel plate today, but I felt like since I had it out, I was going to go for gold and kind of enjoy it. So I am creating the background and some hills and bits and pieces, so I was looking for some greens, and I guess with a gel plate you are looking to achieve texture and kind of lots of different layers and things, so it is a really fun tool to play with, and I love playing with my gel plate, and I have found lots of really good uses for it. I do have a few videos on my channel of different ways that I've used it. I've also done the magazine transfer with it, which is really fun, and I made one of my favorite cards that way. If I can remember, I will link that down in the description box below, and if I forget and you'd like to see it, can you please gently remind me, but I'll do my best to remember. I will also link as many supplies as I can down in the description box below. Now, as I said, with all of these paints, I am not going to link them because it's not worth it. Just use whatever you have. You don't need special acrylic paints, in my opinion. Maybe, I guess some would say different, but use what you have and give it a go. And the only thing that can happen is that you find out what does and doesn't work for next time that you play. So it's all pretty fun. I've used a yellow and an orange here. Now I got these Art-Effex little wooden embellishments a little while ago, and I was really excited to receive them. I knew what I wanted to do with them. They are almost a Halloween vibe, perhaps. You could use them for that. However, we don't really do Halloween very much here in New Zealand, and I certainly don't really celebrate it very much. It's not a big thing. So I am going to use them in different ways, which is why I bought them. So I am just adding the little wooden house onto my gel plate and getting some of that yellowy orangey texture. Now once it is all dry, and make sure it's dry, otherwise you'll ruin your pens, I am using some Faber Castell big brush PITT pens, and these are India ink, but you could use any kind of Copics or alcohol marker pens, or even just normal kids felt pens would work fine. And I'm just going around the little windows just to give a little bit more interest to the house, because it was pretty all one color beforehand. So I think these little houses and things are super cute. And I was going to use the grass as well that came in that little wooden set. However, I kind of changed my plan on where the card was going. Now this is a card for someone who's just purchased a new house, so it's a congratulations on their new home. I have part of the stamp set here that I'm going to use for the first part of my sentiment, and this is going to say congratulations on your, and I'm just going to stamp that in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and I'm going to stamp it on one of those backgrounds that I made right at the beginning. Then I am going to use some of the Kelly Create stamp sets, the lettering stamp sets, to create the words new and home. Now guys, I'm going to leave in my mistakes and the things I didn't like about my card, so you'll see in a minute how I end up fixing what I didn't like. But these all kind of join up really nicely. They're all linking letters, and so I am starting with the home word because I knew that I wanted that to be nice and centered, and then working backwards to create the word new. And once I had kind of stood back and looked at this, it was so wonky and I really couldn't handle it being on there like that. It was not how I pictured it would be in my mind. So I went ahead and practiced and stamped it on a new white piece of paper, and I'm going to cover that right up. And actually, I like the look of that better. So it worked out really well in the end. Now, there are no fancy dyes being used here for this one. I am just creating some hills for the background out of the green that we created on the gel plate at the beginning. So I'm just using my scissors and just kind of having a play. You can see that I don't like the first hill that I cut, so I cut a second one, and then I'm just going to fit them in however I want them to be. And it is really fun. I think I do have some hill dies in my stash somewhere, but sometimes it's just really nice to just use your scissors and just create without having to get out something and die cut it as well. So I enjoy doing both, don't get me wrong, but this card was definitely, I guess maybe more in the mood for just making things from scratch and doing it how I wanted it to be rather than having to adjust to whatever I had on hand. So I was giving it a go. You can see that my hills are super wonky, but I will cut off all of the edges and they will look straight again. And then it was really bugging me to see that those two new home words up the top there, so I thought cover it up and it will be gone. And nobody but you and I will know the difference. So I'm just using some liquid glue to adhere down that paper, but I am using the liquid glue. It's the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and I am using that on pretty much everything today. Now I have cut out this little fence and gate here, but I want the gate to open. So I am going to cut off kind of both sides of two of those die cuts. So I die cut 3 all together, and I'm putting the long fence portion together, and then I will put it on the back of this one here, but the gate is going to stay attached because this one is the one that will swing. And then I have all 3 of those little pieces that will go on the other side of the fence, and I will stack those up together. This just makes for it to be a little bit more robust, especially if people are going to be opening and closing this little gate with their fingers on the card. So I just want to make sure everything kind of is really stable and doesn't fall apart for the recipient of the card. I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue, and I'll pop all of that fence behind the main one. And then you can see my little gate is going to open and close. Now here's where I wanted to add like a little driveway. So I am just using the back of that piece of paper, so just forget that it's got green on the back. I am just lining everything up how I want it to sit, and then drawing with a pen where I want my little driveway to go, or my little path, whatever you may look at it as. So I have kind of just figured out where everything needs to go. And then once I've done that, I had a look through my stash for a stamp that could kind of look like bricks or stones or something like that, but I really didn't have anything that was quite right. So I am going to cut this out, and this is another item that I kind of created from scratch, so to say. So I was really enjoying this process today. I am going to ink this up first of all with some hickory smoke. This happens to be the Distress Oxide ink, because if you guys have watched my channel, this is one of the main inks that I use because it is so versatile. Then I have this embossing folder here that is kind of like bricks, I guess. So I'm going to pop my little driveway or path in there, run it through my die cutting machine, and then you can see it's got really nice texture, but it's almost a little bit hard to see. So once you run things through your embossing machine or your die cutting machine, it's a good idea to go over just lightly. I'm actually going over with a black finger dauber. I didn't re-ink it up, but you can see there that you can kind of see the texture a lot better. I'm also going to go around the outsides of the little path, and that will just help it stick off the kind of green background that it's going to be on. Speaking of doing that and helping kind of define the borders and edges, whilst I had my finger daubers out, I have that little storage case there that I really like for my finger daubers. I've used it for a long time, and it is definitely how I keep a track of all the colours and they don't all get mixed together and end up getting colour all over each other. But I am just taking one of the darker greens and going around the edges of the hills and then the edges of the card. And again, it just helps separate everything out. I am putting my little card front onto a 4¼ by 5½ inch card base. The card front itself measures 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and the people who this card is going to, they bought a little farm section, a little kind of lifestyle section, and it has this kind of white fence down the front by their driveway. So that was kind of my inspiration for this card. I'm not recreating their property at all, but just some little similarities. I'm marking off where I need to cut my little path so that it matches the edge of my card, and I'm just starting to glue everything down. You can see my little gate is going to stay open and be able to open and close just as a little fun feature on the front of the card. And then, as I said, I'm just using matte medium, the liquid glue, to glue everything down. This is a really, really strong glue. It dries really strong, and it's also a glue that dries clear with no shine or sheen if things squish out the side. So that's really important to me, that I can glue down things like these wooden embellishments, and I know that they won't come off, but I can also use it on paper and everything like that as well. Now here is where I was like, I don't want to be able to see through the house. I don't want to see the hills through the window of the house. So I did use some pink paper, but it's white on the other side, I promise, and that just stops you from being able to see the hills through the windows. Then, as a final and finishing touch to my card, just to make it a little bit more special, is I'm going to add some glossy accents onto the little house wooden embellishment. Now, you certainly don't have to do this as well, but yeah, I was just having lots of fun, and I really like how my little gate opens and closes there. I like that it's just got that little feature on the card. And when they see this card, people just can't help but open and close that little gate, which is what they are meant to do. So it creates that little fun interactive feature. That's my card for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and it inspired you to try something similar. I really appreciate you guys spending time watching my videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye!